Afternoon.
Yeah, good
So
afternoon.
this session is going live on YouTube channel, so be mindful because now it will be officially recorded.
You give us a signal. Are you making it live right now?
Already done. Already
Oh,
done.
Done.
okay.
Done.
I don't mind the big, because I should be audible to them.
Their voices, in their control. You
But my voice, they were saying that it was better if I.
People are already in there.
no, it has no correlation with their.
No, but my, I'll again ask.
Okay.
Are you able to hear me clearly, or you need volume to be increased?
No,
We are able to hear you clearly, sir.
Are you able to hear me clearly? Or
Yes.
you
Very
want my-
clear.
very clear. I think
I
your
think it would be
screen,
a
I think
little voice can be increased.
Sorry.
the position.
You can increase little bit, sir. Professor Sharma, sir. You can increase the voice little bit.
Little bit, yeah.
Yeah.
That means
People can do that on their PC also. They can
Yeah, I
increase.
think it's.
No correlation with them.
no, but they are saying that my voice is very loud. How can they say that?
Okay, okay. If you
No,
say,
no, we are able to hear you, Prof. That's not an issue at all.
No, whether it required adjustment in the computer.
I think adjustment
Yes.
is required in terms of your screen. You are only able to see half of you. So just slightly away from it or focus.
no, come ahead and adjust. You just, okay.
Adjust the camera properly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's better. That's better.
Yeah.
That's better. Thank you.
So I change over to proper dress. Otherwise, I was in own dress for the interview with Nidhi Verma. You know, Anirudh, that my interview with Nidhi Verma has gone real. There are 4,500 hits.
Kids, no, yeah, I know.
Did you hear that?
Yes, I heard it. I heard it. I think I heard it about 2 weeks ago.
No, but it wasn't 2 weeks, 8-10 days ago.
Rolly Mom, welcome.
You know, the first question she had posed to me
Hello?
was the university
Yes,
relationship.
Mr. Ganesh.
Where I give example of ICT. Anirudh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. I can.
Saying that the first question Nidhi had flung on me was university industry relationship.
Yeah.
I told her the example of ICT, how it has cultivated this for decades.
It has always been like that. It has always been
Saying
like that.
It is not a one-sided affair.
No,
And
of
I
course
said
not.
very clearly that pompousness on either side is bad.
No, either. The language which needs to be adopted by both the parties is equally required.
You're not able to start or what? Past 4:30.
I'm just waiting for Shalini to give the green signal because I think she's handling the YouTube link.
It is fine already.
Yeah, we will start in
live.
5 minutes, just 2 minutes.
They're live on YouTube.
If we off the fan, then your voice will louder.
Oh,
I'll you just
no, you don't know the switch.
Because if he's on, you need to.
Sorry.
How your voice will be more audible and louder to them.
You see, that's why it kept this on.
Yeah, Mr. Ganeshan. Yeah, is Dr. Mazumdar joining now or is she joining at 5? Yeah, because we're just about to start in 2 minutes. All right, so then you can just tell her to join. We'll admit immediately. Okay? Okay, yeah, thanks. Sir.
Start. Shalini, shall we start?
Yes, we are starting.
Yes, very good. Shalini, you are on the video. Go ahead.
I request everyone to mute their mics. so that everybody is audible and our program goes smoothly. This program is live streamed on Institute of Chemical Technology's YouTube channel. In case you find there is a low bandwidth, you can watch it on YouTube. So, good evening, namaste, namaskar, boatarji, honorable guests, esteemed speakers, scientists, faculties across the different continents, students, and my dear friends. Warm welcome to one and all. I, Dr. Shalini Arya, faculty, a researcher, and a passionate person in science, communication, science advice, and science outreach to contribute to the society, have been working at Food Engineering and Technology Department, Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, for almost 2 decades. Being an active member, I have been closely working with Indian National Young Academy and being at a very responsible position very recently on Executive Committee of Global Young Academy, my involvement at both international and national levels on various global projects directly relevant to various SDGs is significant. On behalf of Institute of Chemical Technology, INEAS and Global Young Academy, and my very own behalf, I welcome everyone in this third series of international webinar on empowering women in science, unleashing latent talent. Dear all of you are aware about the Sustainable Development Goals and very specifically, today I'm going to address the specific targets. Sustainable Development Goal 5, which is directly talks about gender equality, which calls for action to ensure equal participation of women in all spheres of life, including economic participation. However, inadequate skill sets arising out of unequal access to enabling aspects such as education, training, resources, technology that limits women's effective participation in the workforce. So, we also see that there is an inequality in employment exacerbated in the presence of social and cultural barriers, including stereotyped gender roles, forcing a larger population of the Indian women to take up low-paying jobs. Education is a very powerful means or system to promote gender equality. So it is within this context, Institute of Chemical Technology, along with INEAS and Global Young Academy, are very proud to present a third series of international webinar titled Empowering Women in Science, Unleashing Latent Talent. I'm sure we will be able to create a discourse around women's active participations in various fields, various opportunities that early career women scientists, young girls can grab at both national and international levels will be a strong discussion in this very webinar. In today's webinar, we will have questions and answers for all the speakers except for the chief guest address. We will be running a live questions and answers at the end of the talk. So if you have any questions, just type your questions in the live chat box. And if you miss anything, don't worry. We will be making these recordings available and all the speakers have given their consent for this live recording. I request everyone to avoid any personal comments, messages on the chat box. Only relevant questions related to the subject will be taken care of. The link for the feedback form and other relevant announcements will be made available in the chat box. So with this, friends, I welcome all of you once again for this webinar. I now request Professor Aniruddha Pandit, who is Vice Chancellor, Institute of Chemical Technology, Mumbai, India, who is a fellow of almost all science academies, including TWAS, the World Academy of Sciences, and he's an internationally known scientist in the area of chemical engineering. I request Professor Pandit to give us the welcome address. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Shalini, for a very elaborate background on this series of webinars. And I can see the growing confidence of women who's communicating and disseminating knowledge. I've been associated with this series of webinars. The first one, which talked about the gender equality, where Professor Ashutosh Sharma participated and had a very lively discussion, followed by a second in series, which was conducted with the great success of the first in regional language, Marathi and Hindi, so that the reach of this particular topic could be extended significantly, which also went off very well. And this is the third in series where women in science is the topic. And I must compliment Shalini along with Professor Padma Devarajan for gathering such a distinguished audience and speakers to address this particular issue. I can see Professor Joshi is also joined, Professor Sharma, chief guest. I am sure likes of science celebrities, Professor Chandrima Shah, the president of Indian National Science Academy, and Dr. Kiran Mujumdar Shah are definitely going to enlighten the audience. My association with women in science started way back in late 90s, 1997, 98, when DST had a scheme of women in science. For some reason, I was a member of this particular project appraisal committee, which was looking at women in science. It was run by DST. I had an opportunity of being in that particular committee for 2 consecutive terms, which is almost for 6 years. This term was chaired by Professor Mrs. Parekh, the mechanical engineer from IIT Bombay. And I learned many things about how to handle and how to look at the women in science, the kind of difficulties which they have to overcome to pursue their scientific career, and also not only to pursue, but to convince that they have a capability of contributing something significant. And it is indeed a pleasure for me to learn from a veteran scientist, a lady scientist, that too, and to see how the science, women in science needs to be handled. And you could not have found out a better person as a chief guest than Professor M Sharma, who has been championing the cause of women in science for such a long time, right from the beginning at ICT. In all the scientific forums, you will always find Professor Sharma is a champion of promoting women in science. And I'm sure he is going to talk about similar things, his experiences, and it is going to be, I'm really looking forward to that. The choice of 2 ladies subsequently, Dr. Kiran Mujumdar Shah and Professor Chandrima Shah, are essentially
Able to hear Professor
address
Pandit?
2 sides of the same coin.
Sir, can you talk a little more louder?
Yeah. Is it better now?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So the 2 ladies who are subsequently going to talk, Dr. Kiran Mujumdar Shah and Professor Chandrima Shah, are going to address the 2 sides of the same coin. And at the end of the day, you will be in a position to find out, a position to know there is a coin which can have 2 heads on both the sides. And you will be in a position to realize that how they can be successful industrial sector or how they can be academically at the top. So I'm really looking forward to this particular webinar, and I'm very happy of giving me an opportunity or getting this opportunity to inaugurate this. Must compliment all the organizers, and without any further delay, I'm sure you are all waiting to listen to Professor Sharma. So me too, I'm in the same boat. So I will stop here and welcome you all on behalf of Institute of Chemical Technology, TechWip, and INEAS, as correctly pointed out by Shalini, and compliments to you all again. And enjoy the webinar and look and see what can be done and how it needs to be furthered. Thank you.
Shalini?
Shalini
is around? Or
Shalini is offline. It seems
all right.
Shalini.
Thank you very much, Professor Pandit, for that very interesting way of beginning this very, very important seminar. And I think I will now take over and introduce the theme of the seminar. So I would like to start on a very light note. about the current situation that we are facing. And what we see here is 6 countries led by women have significantly flattened the COVID-19 curve. And that really tells us a lot. And currently, when you look at the statistics of women in science versus men in science, we see across the world, we have about 43% women among the scientific population. And in India, it's a very meager low 14. So I was just wondering if we increase these numbers quickly, what could happen to the COVID pandemic? Probably we would have it in much better control. So we're talking about women empowerment, and there are so many definitions when I went to the Google and tried to look at definitions. But what really touched me was this one particular definition that said, women empowerment is all about equipping and allowing women to make life-determining decisions. And this is really one of the very crucial decisions that needs to be made. For instance, whether a woman wants to get into a career or not get into a career. And very recently, I saw this film called Thappad in English. I apologize to all our foreign friends. They may not be able to relate to it. But for all the Indians, I'm sure you'll relate to it. And Thappad was all about a slap, and it got talked about for the slap. But for me, it was not the slap that mattered. It was everything that came before the slap that mattered. And that was that woman, qualified woman with a lot of talent, just playing that same mechanical, methodical role in serving the family and not being allowed to even drive a car and pretending to be happy with all that. And that is what one is trying to do, cloistering. And society, the way it's cloistering, many women tend to feel happy in that, tend to accept it, and tend to think, yes, that's what I should do, even though they have a lot of talent. And I think that is where empowerment is very critical, to wake up that woman, to accept herself, to accept her talent. So when we talk of women empowerment, what can we help as empowered women? Because very important, it is the empowered woman who could help the woman much better than the empowered man, because she would be able to relate more closely. Of course, there is a lot of empowering needed from society as a whole. But as a woman, how can we empower other women? The very first thing we need to do is boost her self-esteem and make the woman feel special, and do this with a lot of kindness, so they don't feel it's being enforced on them. And when I say this, I am not a strong feminist. I am somebody who believes in gender equality. So we are talking of building the woman, making her a stronger individual, and help her to shut down negativity. And also this negativity that comes from within the home sometimes. Like I have a cousin who did her PhD finally, but she always said, my mom has said that I must take care of my children on priority first and do nothing else at that time. And today she regrets that she got her PhD at a much later stage and lost out on her career. In this section, I would like to talk about what I heard in a recent interview with Sania Mirza. When she was at the for doubles, and she was actually the world leader in tennis, Sania Mirza was asked by one of our leading channels, news channels, about what does she think about having a family? How does she think she's going to manage career and family? And she replied very gently and sweetly. She said, can't you see where I am now? And can't you not appreciate where I am now and understand that the way I got here, I will get through all my hurdles. I will manage my life and I will take it forward well. Why do you ask this question to me and never ask it to another senior male tennis player? And this actually shut up that journalist. And I think that kind of strength every woman does not have. And that is why we need empowerment. to encourage women to make their aspirations a reality. And while doing this, we also had a webinar just a few days ago on Santulit Jivan, or balancing life and career. And that's what we need to do. Make your aspirations a reality while understanding this balance, because without this balance, society will be a wreck. Women are equally responsible for society. So we cannot take drastic decisions and create a problem in society. And how can one do this? We can be open and honest and share our own stories. And as live examples of sharing stories, the first webinar we had in the series on gender equality was all about sharing stories from across the world. And we realized that whether you're in India or in Greece or in Africa, wherever you are, the story is very similar. We understand it, we hear of it, we hear about what's happening in India because we follow what's happening in India in our newspapers and everywhere. But it's the same story, and you realize that women have been able to make it to the top without a huge challenge if only their determination is very, very strong. So what you need actually is to be very determined that I want to do something, and I will make sure that I will cross every hurdle to do it and not give up. And that really helps. And while a woman is getting strong like that, if there is a mentor they could relate to, who could lead by example, if they could admire strong women and celebrate their different types of achievement, this can be a very, very huge motivating factor. Another very important area for empowered women to empower women is to be an advocate for female colleagues. And this advocacy, as a small example, would be to help a new mother who's in science, maybe doing her PhD, maybe working somewhere, adjust with this new situation and see if there is any way I can provide moral support and also maybe physical support by finding contacts, by outreach. And this is something that one needs to do. And today, of course, this kind of support is being provided through the development or creating creches for students. And in fact, at ICT, we have a creche. And I can see that a lot of mothers are using that and really comfortable in their career because of that. So it's very important to motivate them, and along with that, trigger the leadership potential in the person. It's very, very important to trigger the leadership potential, because once that leadership potential is triggered, it would create a fire in the belly so that they become unstoppable. It's also important to provide opportunity, provide exposure, and provide inspiration to excel. So the entire purpose of this webinar that we have on empowering women by unleashing latent talent, because there's so much talent and so much that can be inspired, motivated to charge young women with an unstoppable energy to excel. So for this seminar, which is very relevant and crucial today, I think we have the ideal chief guest in Padma Vibhushan, Professor Sharma, who is one of the greatest supporters and motivator of women. It is my privilege to introduce such a huge legend to this audience. Professor Manmohan Sharma, former director of UDCT, is currently Emeritus Professor of Eminence at ICT. His passion for his alma mater, UDCT, now ICT, is immeasurable. And I'm sure you would like to know that he has spurned many other prestigious national and international offers to stay in ICT from where he retired as director. During his tenure as director, ICT and UDCT has witnessed spiraling growth, and the seeds of autonomy were sown during his tenure. And Those seeds that were sown have fructified today in ICT, becoming not just a deep university, but a university.
आगे से लेफ्ट लेना.
May I request people to put this on mute, please? There's a lot of disturbance. Professor Sharma is not just a leader, but a visionary leader who has created a succession of leaders who are taking the institute to greater and greater heights. Professor Sharma's contributions to chemical engineering, science, and technology are unparalleled. And this has brought him a horde of national and international recognitions and accolades. In 1990, he was the first Indian engineer to be elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society, UK. Subsequently, we have the second engineer in Dr. R.A. Mashelkar, our very own Chancellor and alumnus. He's also a fellow of all the science bodies, science academies, INSA, NASI, and the Indian Academy of Science, and also a fellow, nominated fellow by the Royal Academy of Engineering. He was the only engineer probably who was president of INSA during 1989 to 90, and has received many other awards like the Leverhulme Medal of the Royal Society, the Bhatnagar Prize, the FICCI Award, the Vishwakarma Medal, the GM Modi Award, the Meghnad Saha Medal, and a host of other prestigious academic honors and awards, and also been honored by several universities and IITs with honorary doctorates. His recognition by the country, the nation recognized him when he was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1987, and subsequently 14 years later, the Padma Vibhushan by the President of India. Today, Professor Sharma is here as a champion of women. He has always promoted the cause of women and has played an important role in unleashing the latent talent in women. And I consider myself a very proud beneficiary of this support. He continues to play a motivational and inspirational role to ensure that women in science and technology continue to excel in science and technology and also grow as leaders in the field. With this introduction to a walking legend, I think we are all really fortunate that we are walking the earth with this legend. And with all humility, I now welcome Padma Vibhushan, Professor M. Sharma, to deliver his address. Sir, please.
Padma, thank you very much. You have been very charitable to me to say so many good things. And Shalini for steering this program. I am delighted to participate in this and want to compliment Institute of Chemical Technology for taking a lead for empowerment of women in science, something which has been very close to my heart. And Institute of Chemical Technology is an outstanding example with our pharmaceutical science and technology and pharmacy departments being almost largely dominated by women scientists. Isn't that a great tribute to ICT? So is the case in our food technology, where women scientists have played a very important role. I want to start by saying some anecdotal part. When I was a student in 50s, ICT had only 2 lady students. Today, when you walk through, you only see women students. Isn't that a fantastic change, indicating empowerment of women studying engineering and technology? Another anecdote, in mid-90s, when we wanted to create a ladies hostel in the ICT campus, people used to have a joke at me, have you gone mad that you want to have a ladies hostel? It was something like 60-seater, originally only 30 seats. In the very first year, it was under capacity. And today, I think there's something like more than 200 students staying in the different hostel, because the old hostel meant for ladies could not accommodate enough number of students. Are you seeing me or not?
We
Are you
can.
able to,
Yes, sir.
okay.
Yeah, we can see you and hear you.
Okay. I want to also give you some anecdotes. How chemical engineering became popular with the lady students. They till about let's say late 60s, early 70s, particularly late 70s, it became a popular subject. And I want to single out one of my brightest lady student, Bhavani Janki Raman, called Bhavani Raghuraman. She was number one in the class. Reason why I'm giving this example is that how empowerment is transmitted. Now, if you want person not only to do the first degree in chemical engineering, and I was trying to impress upon her that she should do a PhD, she is so bright. Now, the moot question was, what sort of job will I get with a PhD? I said, I assure you that you will get a very rewarding job. And she did. The point I'm trying to make is that we have to look at the whole problem from beginning to end. If you don't get proper employment, the chances of empowering women will not be all that great. So I want to now take the inspirational part, that how one of my great admiration is for Marie Curie. There are several reasons why I'm mentioning Marie Curie. First of all, she's the only woman, only person who got 2 Nobel Prizes in science, physics and chemistry. If you see the laboratory in which she worked in Paris, you will wonder how such an outstanding piece of work comes. This is to communicate to you that when people cribbing about this facility not being there, this is not there, that is not there, that is not what is important. What is important is what ideas do you have, what original ideas do you have. And Marie Curie had all those original ideas with all the difficulties that she had. I understand now Nobel laureates, women Nobel laureates total 54. And between 2001 and 2019, 24. And I want to take the example of the most recent, and Madam Karen Majumdar will especially appreciate this, Francis Arnold. Francis Arnold, professor of chemical engineering, has come out with this directed evolution. I think it is going to revolutionize production of chemicals. Something which nature does, we might be able to do something better than nature. But this was unthinkable a few years ago, all out of effort of a women scientist. Go back to the extraordinary work Dorothy Hitchins had done, and how women have done so well in physiology and medicine. I'm not talking about people who have excelled also in economics, but physiology and medicine have been the areas where women scientists have done. Now, one of the reasons for that is that genetically, I feel women have patience and perseverance. Men often lack patience. And in research, and when you talk empowerment in research, patience is one of the most important factor in doing anything original. To do something original, you have to be patient, you have to have perseverance. And this goes on. But nearer home, go back to the late 19th century. Anandiben Joshi, who was married off very early, had a child very early. She was encouraged by her family how extraordinarily well she did, Anandiben Ben Joshi. Same in earlier periods, we had Iravati Karve, who was an anthropologist. I remember as a president of Indian National Science Academy in 89-90, as Padma pointed out to you, we were assiduously looking for anthropologists of repute who can become members of the academy. It was difficult. But go back, how long ago Iravati Karve became such an outstanding anthropologist. Somehow people don't seem to realize that anthropology is a very, very extraordinary science. It's not all that simple to be an anthropologist. Now, we have innumerable examples of how well women scientists have done. And there's always something. The reason I'm quoting these names is to make them as a model for inspiration. Now, take our Asima Chatterjee in Calcutta. How well she did in organic chemistry. You take other areas, in every area, I find women have done very well in India. Just nearer in Maharashtra, we had Kamala Soni, we had Kamal Randhive. They did extremely well. But one observation I made amongst women scientists, that there seemed to be a lot from Bengal, which interests me because historically the penchant for high education and all has been paramount in Bengal. And women empowerment, actually the movement started first in Maharashtra. So Maharashtra has also done quite well amongst women scientists. South India has also done well. UP, Bihar, Madhya Pradesh haven't done that well amongst outstanding uh, women scientists. If you look at the fellowship of Indian Academy or Indian National Science Academy, or now Indian National Academy of Engineering, you will find number of women. But the fact remains that somehow, when it comes to engineers, there is always some resistance. So Smita, who is going to participate, I want to quote her example. She was number one in the school examination from Chembur area. And we had this vacation training after third year. And Brahmashal, as it was called in those days, refused to have her as a trainee. I was furious. So I talked to the chief of Brahmashal. On what basis are you saying that you will not accept her? I have found out that you have a separate toilet for women. So that could have been an argument, because there is an essential requirement, Factories Act, that for women there must be a separate toilet. And then they realized that she was number one from Chembur area where the refinery is located, and she was taken in. I'm deliberately giving these examples only to say sometimes you have to act in a proactive manner to promote something for which people have prejudices. When she wanted to join Hindustan Liver Research Center in Andheri, the chief, Dr. KKG Menon, she cleared all her interviews, and then he was hesitant to take her. So I asked Dr. Menon, what is your reservation? Why are you saying that she will not be hired? I think it's a highly negative view of yours. I was very friendly with him. I could even tell him by names. I said, what nonsense is going on? She was jolly well taken, and she did extremely well. So there are examples, like I told you, for Bhavani Janki Raman, then we had Mahalakshmi Iyer. They did extremely well in industry. See, ultimately, please realize the natural habitat of research is industry. We in universities do something different, but to commercialize that, it is industry which is the habitat. And unless women scientists also get jobs in industry, today pharma industry is a good example. You are going to have Madam Kiran Majumdar, that you will see how well women scientists are doing. I like to take out one or two areas, how well they had done in life sciences. Take botany, where you require a lot of patience and all. Women scientists have done very well in botany. But in the garb of biotechnology today, botany has taken a backseat. There are people, we can't find easily people who can recognize plants. I mean, this is one of the fancies of biotechnology which has ruined research in botany, if I might say so. We have this outstanding example of a person who's going to join you, the first women scientist who is president of Indian National Science Academy. I'm very happy that Chandrima has been made the president of Indian National Science Academy. I say so, I was president almost 30 years ago. It augurs very well. We still don't have a women scientist engineer to be director of any of the IIT. Doesn't look good. CSI broke the, Lakshmi Kantan is going to join you. She's the first women director of a CSR lab. I'm very happy to see this, and I complimented her when she became the director of IICT in Hyderabad, ICT in Hyderabad, Institute of Chemical Technology. In fact, I made a remark that you have stolen our brand name of chemical technology, At that time, no one else was chemical technology. Are you able to hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, perfectly, sir.
Oh, something went off in the computer. So it, unless you set examples, the empowerment will not take place. So I take you back many years ago, almost 25 years ago. Government of India, UGC, DST took a very nice initiative of research associateship. There was an age limit put on that. We were able to rescind that age limit. I participated in the meetings in Delhi, and I made a powerful plea that is highly negative for women scientists who go family way. The rules were changed. We were one of the earliest to have a research associate women scientists who had gone to the family way, and the new age limit that was now available was made use of. We were one of the earliest to do that. So unless it's one thing to talk dry, say you must do that. Unless you have done it yourself, it doesn't cut ice. So my plea is, when you talk of women empowerment, please give live examples. If Vijayalakshmi Ravindranath could do so well in neuroscience and in the Brain Research Center in Delhi, for her own reason, she has moved to the center which has been created for an Institute of Science, Bangalore. And she got the Vasvik Award. I think these are the kinds of examples which are highly inspirational. So we have to put idols, people who have performed, whether in chemistry it was Ashima Chatterjee, or whether in very early days, Iravati Karve, or in more recent time, Rajeshwari Chatterjee or Aditi Pant. These are the kind of Anamani. These are the scientists who have done so well. And it's good to see now, apart from life sciences, physiology, and medicine, it's very nice to see now in engineering women who are doing well. Look at the recent example of the great success in this ISRO program, where a women engineer played such a vital role, and she was applauded all over the country. That was a women engineer who played such a vital role in the Indian space program. Now, these are kinds of live examples to show that women scientists can be better than men scientists. But sometimes these prejudices are such, many people don't remember that up to late 40s, Oxford and Cambridge were not giving degree to women. And till Margaret Thatcher came, there was no lady prime minister, when we already had examples in India, Lanka, women prime minister. Women have done well in politics in India, but that is a very different area. I'm not talking about, or in sociology. We are talking of empowerment in science, and this has to be by examples. Institute of Chemical Technology is justifiably proud because they have championed this cause. And it's a live example of seeing how chemical technologists, chemical engineers have done so well in research. In fact, so many directors of national laboratory have come out of ICT. Men, but I'm talking of women also who have gone to industry, who have done so well, or in research areas who have done so well, simply because they saw. Once again, I want to remind, this was not the case in 50s and early 60s. It is the promotional part. But in a very different area, I want to give you an example of Rajasthan, which earlier used to be called Rajputana after we got independence. And Marwadi women will not go to a male doctor. So there used to be Janana hospitals in Jodhpur. And Rajasthan was the first Rajputana to start with, them became Rajasthan, to have one-third reservation for women in medical college. There was only one medical college in Jaipur. And it revolutionized availability of lady doctors. It completely revolutionized medical services for women in a matter of less than 10 years. You can see how empowerment can be done. Sometimes policy decisions, like research associate, when the old age would not allow women who have gone through family to become research associate and then look for a full position. I'm very happy that Institute of Chemical Technology has taken lead in having this particular event and being able to assimilate, get people from all over the world, both from the industrial side, from scientific side, developing countries, developed countries. I compliment once again Padma and Shalini, and I wish you great success in your endeavors. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Sharma. It was such a wonderful talk, such an insightful talk today you have given. It was really interesting to hear about your very own experiences in teaching, research, academics, and also in personal level. So your stories shared based on your own experiences are fascinating, and I'm sure this will inspire many attending today's webinar. And thank you so much for sharing your time and experiences with us. Thank you, sir. So we move ahead and go with our next speaker. And before I introduce our next speaker, I would like to quote, "I want to be remembered as someone who put India on the scientific map of the world in terms of large innovation. I want to be remembered for making a difference to global healthcare. And I want to be remembered as someone who did make a difference to social economic development in India." The tag of being the richest women of India bothers her. She wants to be remembered not only for the fortune she built, but the sheer hard work she didn't shy away from putting in to reach the pinnacle of success, and none other than Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, the inspiring founder, executive chairperson of Biocon Limited, is a woman with remarkable dignity and poise. She has the philosophy of building affordable innovations, renowned for her philanthropic measures. She believes in giving back to the society, and she was recently in news for pledging to divert half her wealth towards the development of infrastructure required to combat the deadly disease cancer. So with this, I request Dr. Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw to give us a keynote address. Over to you.
Thank you, Shalini, and hello, Professor Sharma. It is a great pleasure and a privilege to be in this particular session, and thank you for such a inspiring, introductory speech that you gave. I just want to take off from where Dr. Sharma left. I think he has been a great empowering force for women in science, and I must thank him for all that he's doing to make sure that women get their rightful place in science. But you also know that when you look at the statistics, I think the number of women in STEM are too few and far between when it comes to finally applying their knowledge that they have gained over the years. If you look at the statistics, we know that in many, many parts of the world, as Professor Sharma said, you find a large number of women students when it comes to science and technology, and it is only increasing. In fact, 2/3 of the developing economies of the world said that more and more women are entering science. But the problem is that women are studying science more and more, but they are not doing science after they finish their education. And they are not pursuing scientific research as a career. So we need many more women to pursue this scientific career path, is what I feel. If you look at it, just look at the research scene in India. Only 2 in 10 researchers in India are women scientists. That's not at all good. We need to make it 50-50. If you look at the report on women scientists in India, 30% of engineering students are women, which is a great statistic to have. But when you look at the number of engineering students in our premier engineering institutes, IITs, the number is not 30%. It is much, much lower. Okay. Then when you look at the medical students, 45% of medical students are actually women in India. But then look at the number of women who actually are there as medical practitioners in AIMS, very, very few. So I think we need to understand that unless we start populating these spaces in larger numbers, we will still be having this discussion 10 years from now. As a scientist entrepreneur, I must tell you that once I had some sort of missions that there were some kind of objectives and goals that I had when I started Biocon. So I said, as a woman scientist who's starting as an entrepreneur, I want to encourage more and more women to pursue a scientific career. Today, I'm really delighted that 40% of my scientists in our R&D are women. Okay. However, when I look at the number of engineers whom I can actually use in our manufacturing operations, I hardly have a few women that I can talk of. That's not good enough. So when I look at even our entire ecosystem, whether it's medical affairs, clinical research, here women should be there. And we must have strong representation of women. But even in my case, I've not been able to find enough women who can play these roles. So I just think that really we need to think about this whole challenge that we have as women in science to do more. You know, Professor Sharma very rightly said, we have enough role models to get inspired in our country. You know, whether it is the boldness and the intrepidation with which Anandi Gopal Joshi became the first medical graduate from the US, or whether it is Janaki Amal, who basically rejected a planned marriage to follow her passion for botany and hybridized India's sugarcane varieties into a plant sweet enough to grow into 30 million ton a year industry. She actually is the original architect of our sugar industry. Don't forget that. I mean, you must remember these kind of inspirational women scientists who actually have built modern India for us. Okay. Then you look at Dr. Sonia Swaminathan. She was not only the former director of ICMR, but today she is the chief scientist of WHO. And you know, WHO today lacks a lot of credibility on the world stage. But Professor Swaminathan brings credibility to WHO. She is the one who is salvaging the credibility of WHO, don't forget. And she is an outstanding scientist. She's a very thoughtful leader. She is somebody everyone respects because she thinks about the pandemic in a very calibrated way. And every time I talk to her, I feel she's the only one making so much sense of this pandemic and the science of this pandemic and the way we manage the pandemic. So people respect her. She is a loud, forceful, influential voice at the time of this pandemic, and we should be very proud of her. Then if you look at, as Professor Sharma said, our whole ISRO team is full of stars, women stars. You know, you've got Tessie Thomas, who has been christened the Missile Woman of India. Okay. You look at Mangala Mani, she's been christened the Polar Woman of ISRO because she actually was the first woman scientist from ISRO to spend more than a year in the Antarctica, you know, where she went as a part of a 23-member team in 2016. Then you look at Ritu Karidhal. She is called the Rocket Woman of India. So you've already got these various stars from ISRO. And what is great about ISRO is that they've inspired more and more and more women to partake in this whole satellite space and this whole missile and rocket space, right? So I think we must understand that it's not impossible. I mean, who would have thought that space research would have so many women stars? I don't think anyone would have thought that, right? But they are there. And because of them, more and more women scientists are joining ISRO. So I think this is what we need to do. We need to create these hubs of excellence, of scientific excellence, which are fostering women and celebrating women so that more and more women come and join these kind of hubs of excellence. Dr. Gagandeep Kang, first woman to be elected as a fellow of the Royal Society. How proud is that? You know, please understand, it's not easy to be elected as a fellow of the Royal Society. Professor Sharma knows that. And for her to be elected is a matter of great pride for all of us. Okay. She is another very thoughtful scientist. Okay. She is an immunologist. She also understands epidemiology very well. So these are the kind of leading lights we have as women scientists. Look at Chandirama Saha, is a biologist and the first ever woman president of the Indian National Science Academy. That's another very prestigious position to hold. Then I know that when I look at our own field of biotechnology, we have so many people who are all women. Okay, whether it is Renu Swarup, whether it is Alka Sharma, whether it is Kavita Singh, you know, all these women are actually laying out policies, helping the sector to grow. I mean, I know that during COVID, DBT has played such an important role to foster innovation, to encourage entrepreneurship, to support startups. And all this is coming because people like Renu Swarup and her team are wanting to make a difference, and they are supporting a lot of entrepreneurship, and believe me, she's very proud of the women who are running these businesses. Now, even in the vaccine space, you know, we must not forget that Mahima Datla is also a formidable force when it comes to vaccines, because Biologically is also a large vaccine producer, and she's also developing a vaccine. And all these people are making a difference. Today, I was interviewed by Financial Times, and they asked me a question. They said, why aren't there enough self-made women entrepreneurs in India? And I said, well, I think the reason is that the financial ecosystem is not very kind to women. I think the financial ecosystem favors men more than women. The financial ecosystem feels, oh, women don't have it in them to take big risks. They're not ambitious enough. They don't know how to be aggressive in a commercial world. All that is absolutely wrong. I have proved that that is absolutely wrong. You know, I have been the biggest risk taker in the biopharma world. I think nobody took the kind of risks I took to invest and build such a big biopharmaceutical company, right? I also was very bold. I don't think I can be called somebody who's not ambitious. I don't think I can be called somebody who's not a risk taker. I don't think anybody can call me somebody who doesn't understand markets and commercial opportunities, right? So I think we must forget about how the world sees us. I think we must make our own destinies ourselves. That is what I really believe in terms of women and what we need to do. Now, when you look at, you know, how women are contributing to healthcare, let me tell you that the influence that women exert on healthcare outcomes is best encapsulated by a Lancet Commission on Women and Health report, which found that women contribute approximately $3 trillion to healthcare globally, or nearly 5% of global GDP. So, but the problem is that while women play such a vital role in global healthcare, in terms of the workforce as nurses, midwives, community health workers, and doctors, they also make informal contributions by giving care at home. The report also found that 80% of healthcare decisions for the family are made by women. And if this is valued, then this unpaid contribution can account for up to 2.35% of global GDP or $1.5 trillion. So you can see that if women did not, form this workforce that we are talking about in the world, our healthcare would be in abysmal shape. So we don't realize the value and the contribution of women just to healthcare. If we didn't have nurses, if we didn't have midwives, if we didn't have these ASHA workers, how do you think we could have coped even with COVID, you tell me? This is what we have to recognize as women. This is the kind of contribution women are making to the global healthcare ecosystem, and we're not recognizing it and celebrating it enough. We just take it for granted. We basically subjugate women in the healthcare workforce as being taken for granted, right? And that's what we need to really make sure, that we are now talking about nurse practitioners, and yet the medical system is not allowing that. Let me tell you, nurse practitioners can be as competent as an MBBS doctor. That's how significant that opportunity is for a country like India. Let's look at what else do we need to do. Indian government actually is supporting women in STEM in a big way. The Department of Biotechnology has made special efforts to encourage women scientists, to pursue these careers. BioCare, which is one such scheme, allows women researchers, both employed and unemployed, to take up research. DBT has also issued or instituted special awards to recognize excellence in research and innovation by women scientists. They have an award called the Janki Amal National Women Bioscientist Awards. The Biotech Industry Research Assistance Council, BIRAC, also supports women entrepreneurs. BIRAC has 3 incubators which specially focuses on women entrepreneurs. And nearly 10 to 15% of startups supported are by women. BIRAC also has a special challenge for women entrepreneurs to help them take up entrepreneurial research forward. And the Department of Science and Technology and the Science and Engineering Research Board have an array of schemes and awards to encourage women in science. So there's no dearth of, these kind of schemes and awards and grants. And women scientists in STEM must take advantage of all of this. So there's no dearth of that support. But what I feel is it's up to every one of us to do science, to apply science, to leverage science. There's no point just studying science and not putting it to good use. I think that's what the challenge is for all of us who are women, who are in large numbers when it comes to degrees, but in very few numbers when it comes to careers. That's the gap we have to fix. So, studying science and doing science, that's where really the funnel effect takes place. And we have to make sure that we break that effect and make sure that we have a level playing, leveling of the opportunities for men and women. And that's where I think where Professor Sharma has played such an important role, not only in sensitizing the employers about hiring women, but also sensitizing women about pursuing greater challenges. I think that's what we should really focus on. I think we don't need to really keep on looking for inspirational role models because we have enough. We have so many inspirational role models, whether it is in medicine. Look at the way the Reddy sisters have taken on their responsibilities and are driving the Apollo institution to another level. They have also shown a lot of grit and determination to do that. Okay. So whether it is medicine, whether it is engineering, yes, in engineering, we have very few women engineers, but now look at in the engineering field also. Look at Nivruti Rai. She is heading Intel in India. She's driving their innovation ecosystem in India. Okay, so there's no lack of examples. You look at a big organization like Accenture has appointed Rekha Menon as the head of the organization. So there are enough examples, and I can tell you, whenever I meet these young, bright engineers and software engineers, I have full of admiration for them. Look at NASSCOM is headed by Debjani Ghosh. And believe me, she's an outstanding leader for NASSCOM. Everybody respects her. So I don't think we should just keep making excuses and look for role models. There are so many role models for us to look at. But it stops with us. It stops with every one of us, every one of you. Every one of you who has studied science, you have to apply that science, use that science, research that science, and build this country into a science-led country. That's the challenge I think we all need to throw at ourselves. I truly meant it when I said I want to put India on the map of the world when it comes to science and innovation, because I really think we have the talent, we have the capabilities, we need the temper to do that in a global way. We need to do that with a view of delivering excellence in what we do. I always say, we lack self-belief in our own science. We are constantly looking to the outside to tell us about how good science is or how good our science is. I know that much of what we are doing in our company is excellent, but I don't have people who can, we still look for endorsement from the outside because we don't have a system in place to recognize the importance and the greatness of the science we are pursuing. I brought so many drugs to the Indian market, novel drugs, but our doctors don't believe in our novel drugs. They prefer to believe blindly in products being imported into the country. So until we start believing in ourselves, we will never excel. And the same goes for women. Unless we believe in ourselves, we will not excel. So that's the challenge I'm throwing at you. And what I thought I'll do is, I've been talking for some time, but I think it's a much better format when you people ask me questions and I answer those questions. So maybe we'll break into a Q&A, if I may.
Okay, yes, Professor Dr. Kiran, there are many more questions. Our audiences are also on YouTube, and here also there are some audiences, and I request them to post their questions in the chat box. So thank you so much for such a wonderful, inspiring talk through your own experiences. And I read this very inspiring quote from you, and it is that one of my objective when I started Biocon was to make sure that I create a company for women scientists to pursue a vocation. I think today's women, you rightly pointed out that they are doing career, but they are not doing actual science. They are having degrees, but nobody is actually in the field. So when this famous quote, we follow, I think it is going to be fantastic. So, and the examples that you gave, that there are Anandibai Joshi, Sonia Swaminathan, Dr. Gagandeep Kang, and Debjani Ghosh, and many more. So that absolutely, there is no doubt that there is no dearth of support, or there is no dearth of lack of role models. We already have it. So we women have to take, and we have to think whether we want to really do it. So we have one question from Manisha Patil, and she asked, how in your own life you got inspired, and that is how you said that you took so many chances and you took so many courageous steps. So what was your role model, or how did you got inspired?
At every step of my life, I have been inspired by something. And when I started Biocon, what inspired me was the opportunity to replace chemical technologies with enzyme technologies. I felt that, many of the chemical technologies that were used in industry were polluting and very crude technologies. For example, starch processing to convert starch to glucose was done by acid hydrolysis. And it was a very crude process. You would put starch slurry into a vat, you would heat it up to a very high temperature, add very corrosive acid, and then break it down into glucose. And the yield of that used to be less than 90%, if you were lucky. Whereas I saw that, my God, you can do the same process by using enzyme technologies which are far more eco-friendly. You don't need to use such polluting technologies like chemical technologies. You can actually do it by using enzymes that can do the same job much more efficiently, and you could actually get very, very pure glucose with an efficiency of almost 96 to 98%. I felt that was such a nice way of looking at enzyme technologies. And from there, I started developing so many enzyme technologies, just looking at reducing pollution. Now, the point is that at that time, when I was developing enzyme technologies, there was no concept of environmental sustainability, but it was an idea that really grabbed me at that time. Then when I moved into biopharmaceuticals, my purpose, my inspiration came from the fact that, you know, India is the diabetes capital of the world, and we are importing all our insulin. And recombinant human insulin is being imported, but hardly anyone can afford it because most people are using animal insulin. So I said, I've got to do something about this. So I started developing a technology for recombinant human insulin so that I could make a difference and make it affordable. From that, I also got then inspired by the fact that, look, cancer is now being treated by life-saving biologics, by antibodies, which is a new way of treating cancer. And yet we were importing everything into India. And that was so expensive that very few patients could afford it. So again, I said affordable innovation is what I want to focus on, to make a difference to all these patients who need such products. So that's where I draw my inspiration out of something which I feel is there is inequity in our society, there is inequity in the world, there is inequity between the developed and developing economies. How do I make that difference? How do I correct that inequity? That's where I get a lot of my ideas and inspiration from.
Wow. So there is another question from NC Irfani, and she asked, the women who are in science and technology should be star. However, most of the men in science and technology are not even a candle, and these men do not allow women to enter and stay in science.
You know, I think women have to be bold, they have to be daring, and they have to make themselves, their presence felt. I think science is agnostic to gender. And only what will speak for you is your work, your research, your science. And I gave you that example of Gagandeep Kang. It's her science that speaks. If you look at a lot of the women scientists, it's their science that speaks, their research that speaks. So I don't think that's an excuse. I think men will only take advantage of women who are weak and who don't believe in themselves.
Oh, thank you so much. There is another question from Dr. Swarnalata, and she asked, the boldness of a woman is generally taken as arrogant, and how can we as a women come up from this situation?
That's because you allow men to look at you like that. I think if you are bold, be bold. What's wrong? Why should you worry about how people look at you, whether you're aggressive or not? I mean, by the way, aggression, very often I've been told that women are not aggressive enough to do business. Yeah. So why are you worried about those comments? Don't worry about what people tell you. Believe in yourself and do what is right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you.
So there is one more question from Dr. Vandana Patrawale. Do you have any specific advice for women faculty in universities to set up or to take up an entrepreneurial role?
I mean, I cannot give you specific answers, but I think you need to find out where these opportunities are. And whatever those opportunities are,
Okay. There is another question from Shubini, and she asked, Shubini from Lucknow, and she asked, how can industry help the women in science for translational research?
Well, I think first and foremost, translational research is very important, and I've always advocated that every medical center, institution, or research institution must have a very serious focus on translational research. And I think there is a huge opportunity to really, you know, like for instance, COVID right now is a great opportunity for translational research because we are discovering so many things about the way this virus works. And when you understand how the virus works, there will be enough opportunities to translate that knowledge into treatments. So I think that's what a lot of you know, medical researchers and scientific researchers should look at. If you're an immunologist, if you're a pulmonologist, if you're, you know, any doctor that's really specialized in this space should be looking at it that way.
Yeah, there is one more question which is asked by Professor Preeti Saxena. What is the financial load on industries due to this new enzyme-based process?
You know, actually there's a financial benefit because when you replace a chemical technology with an enzyme technology, what you are not factoring in is the environmental cost of not doing that. Okay. I mean, I know that when I was trying to market my enzymes, people never used to understand when I used to argue with them and I used to say, listen, what is your environmental cost of pollution, of treating pollution, of treating effluent? Are you factoring that? So what is the environmental damage that is being caused by pollution? That is the way we have to look at these costs. So if you can prevent environmental damage, I think it's a huge, huge benefit to human society.
Yeah, there is one more question. Again, it is on the same line of previous. It is asked by Sushma Bisht, and she asked from where you got the courage to start your journey as an entrepreneur, which is considered as, you know, insecure profession. And most of the time, women lack that. They do not want to take, you know, that courageous step. So where did you get that courage?
I think women, I think it's in your head. You're trapped in a mindset that says women are not courageous. There are many women who have shown that courage. I'm one of them, but I think many, many women do show courage. It's because any woman, actually you should realize that the courage of a woman to pursue higher education, the courage of a woman to do anything which is unconventional is there in our society. And I just think it's up, for me, it was basically, I studied, and then of course it was my entry into entrepreneurship was by accident. I didn't get a job, so I decided to start my own business. And it was a gender bias that I didn't get a job. So I'm glad that, you know, it made me, it forced me to start my own business and create my own job.
Wow. Again, in the similar line, there is one more question. How did you bring funding to set up your company?
It was very difficult. It was very difficult, but I think, you know, I was able to convince, you know, a banker to actually extend a credit line to me. So it was very difficult in the beginning, but I got, you know, once you speak to people, there are people who can actually understand what you're trying to do and they will help you.
Okay. There is one more question from Deepa Dwivedi. Monica Sharma. Analytical abilities of the women are always questioned in science. What is your opinion on that?
My opinion to that is it's rubbish, because look at the satellite engineers that we have today. Do you think Tessie Thomas or any of her team lack analytical skills? Haven't you seen the movie about all the computational skills that were done? All the very tough mathematical computational exercises were done by women. If you have seen that movie, Hidden Figures, and they were colored women. So there's even that concept that, colored women can't do this and can't do that. They busted that myth also, right?
Yes.
And you must also know that the word computer originated from a group of women who helped process astronomical data for Edward Charles Pickering, who was the director of the Harvard Observatory in the late 19th century. And he christened them as Harvard computers because they used to compute data. He used to give them a whole bunch of data and say, now calculate how much is the distance of this planet from Earth or this from there. And that's how they did it. He actually got a lot of, in fact, he started with his housekeeper. And he got a lot of ordinary housewives to come and do all this computing for them. So this business that we don't have analytical skills is in your mind. I think women have very deep analytical skills. Okay? Shalini, you are muted.
Shalini, just you unmute yourself.
I think she is frozen.
In meantime, can I ask you a question, madam?
Sure, Professor Tura.
But this is a little tricky one. I'm sure you have an answer for every question. There are several stumbling blocks to create parity between sexes in socio-economic and political arena. However, one of them is the endogamy in Indian social context. Endogamy, that is the marrying within your own, whatever your caste is. So that endogamy has pushed the women's progress, has stopped the women's progress. Otherwise, you would be competing with the Scandinavian countries, where 60% women are as powerful as men.
Well, we do have societal challenges, but in every society today, you are seeing women do really, really well. I mean, just recently we talked about, there are so many stories, about the young woman from Andhra Pradesh who actually came from such a poor family and she climbed Mount Everest. We've had stories of, I'm associated with a university in Tamil Nadu called Curie University. And in that, we have given lots of scholarships to young, poor women who come from really slums or very, very poor parts of the rural economy. And these women have gone places. It's about giving opportunities to women. And the moment they succeed, then the whole society becomes very proud of their women. So I think you need to have those role models. More than us being role models, I think we need to encourage these role models from the to improve societal mindsets.
Absolutely.
We need that kind of examples that, here's this woman who has come from this very poor part of the country. Look how well, and there are many examples of that. Those are the kind of examples we should talk about.
Thank you. Wonderful. Shalini, over to you.
Yeah, Shalini was there just now. Padma, you have to unmute. Professor Padma, you'll have to unmute yourself.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kiran. I think Shalini is having an internet issue today.
Okay.
It's really unfortunate, and I don't know. I think.
Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and I wish all the women scientists in our country a great future.
Yes, but I must say one thing. I think today it was in Shalini's mindset that her internet may bother her, and we have had 2 seminars before this, webinars. Today she called me and she said, please be ready to take over. I don't know, my internet may not work. And I think that mindset is the biggest problem for a woman.
That maybe the internet services needs to be managed by women.
Very true.
No, look at the way, just look at the way the pandemic has been managed in different countries.
Absolutely.
It's the women-led countries who have managed it the best.
Yes.
You know, whether it's New Zealand, whether it is Finland, Norway,
Right.
Taiwan, even Scotland has managed it better
Yes.
than the rest of UK.
Yes.
Yes, so
Rightly
that's what
said,
I was
ma'am.
saying. The number of women scientists increased, maybe even the entire pandemic problem and the vaccine problem would be solved rather quickly.
Well,
With women
the
getting-
vaccine is another challenge, but I'm sure we will all solve it. But let's look at the present pandemic, and the pandemic management is really about testing, tracing, triaging, and treating. So I think unless we do that, we will not be able to manage this pandemic well.
Very true.
Yeah,
very true.
I'm
If I can
sorry.
say, Dr. Kiran, this is Smita. Women are born managers, Dr. Kiran, if I can say that.
Okay, so I will have to take your leave, but thank you so much.
Yes,
Thank you so much, Professor Kiran Mujumdar. You have rightly said that as you become more successful, the gender barriers disappears. The credibility challenges you have during your growing up years starts disappearing when you start demonstrating success. So with your very own example, you have already shown all of us that yes, that statement is absolutely true. And I really thank you for giving your thoughtful talk here, your journey, insightful journey through your own experiences. Really thank you so much for being here for this webinar. And I'm sure many women scientists, early career research scientists and girls are immensely benefited through your talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. Bye.
So I'm also thankful to the active, energetic audiences for their active participation. Thank you so much for your engagement in this webinar by asking right questions to our speakers. Thank you so much for posing all the questions in the YouTube live chat box. Thank you. So we move forward and we have our next speaker of the day is Professor Chandrima Saha. So Professor Chandrima Saha is President of Indian National Science Academy, INSA, and she's the first President of INSA, ex-direct female President. She's also ex-Director and current Professor of Eminence in National Institute of Immunology, a Fellow of World Academy of Sciences. She's a member of the Scientific Advisory Board, Indian Council of Medical Research, 2013 to 2016. She's currently governing council member of IIT Gandhinagar, a member of Scientific Advisory Committee, Life Science Research Board, DRDO. She has received various awards, to name few: Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar Medal, INSA Awardee, also Department of Biotechnology Special Award on the occasion of DNA discovery. So I am not listening to her for the first time. I have heard her on various other occasions during our INIAS meetings, and I was really inspired with her talk. So with this, now I request Professor Saha to deliver her talk on leadership roles of women in science. Over to you, Professor Saha.
Thank you, Shalini. Can you hear my voice clearly?
Yes, you are very clear and audible.
Okay. I would like to thank you and INIAS for giving me this opportunity to come to this forum and talking about leadership, which is an interesting topic because leadership, whether it's men or women, many issues are similar, but women are, to my perception, women are great leaders. But I will, come to that. But being a leader, is one of the most difficult tasks, and not everybody can be a leader because it comes with responsibilities, and that responsibility has to be taken up by the person in question, whether it's a man or a woman. But it's interesting how women leadership is perceived. I have some slides. Can I share my screen, Shalini?
Can share your screen.
Okay, I'll just try to share my screen. Okay, how do I?
There is a green button. There is a small arrow. You just click.
Yeah.
Okay, I got it. So
Yes, we can see.
you can see my screen?
Yes, but if you do it in F5 mode, yeah, now it's perfect.
Okay. So, you know, we have a reading. I mean, this we have debated, and it has been debated threadbare, that there is less than 30% of women in the total research workforce of the world. And this really, we have tried to solve it. We have attempted many things. And, you know, we've been successful. It's not that we are not successful, because I remember when I started my career, how few women were there, and now there are much more women in the field. So you know, what do people say? This is an interesting thing, that what do people actually say? So if you look at the United States, I do not have the data for India, but 89% of the Americans believe that women are critical to science. It is so nice to hear that. And then 74% of Americans agree that there needs to be more female role models in science to encourage young girls and students to pursue STEM careers. And 71% of the Americans agree that more women should have leadership roles in science. Now, unfortunately, I do not have this data for India. We are quite weak in data, so I do not have that. But it is interesting to know that people in another part of the world think that women should come in and be leaders. Now, one of the reasons why we don't have enough leaders are, one of the simple reasons that I thought is that because you see, when you start with a small base, you get, after the journey is going to be a leader, when the woman is going to be a leader in the journey, during the journey, there is a lot of filters that happen. And eventually we get very few women leaders. Now, as the base increases, the number of leaders increase more, and with a very big base, we get good women leaders, a sizable number of women leaders. Now, if you look at, if you don't look at science, and if you look at many things on the whole, in the financial sector, in management sector, you look at, there are many women who are doing very well, and Dr. Shaw actually indicated that there are great women who are doing very well. So what we can do is actually encourage more women to come in, so that, because that is what is affecting us most. So what about the numbers? I just wanted to give some numbers. Is that when women enroll, there are enough women who are enrolling in PG and in PhD, but it does not get converted to a career path. Now, women make up only 14% of 2.8 lakh scientists, engineers, and technologists employed in R&D institutions in India, against a global average of 28.4%. Now, in 2017, of the total applications to various branches of IITs was only 10% were women. And you can imagine that 10% will go down after the selections, and so very few women will be there. Now, these are the areas that we really need to improve. Dr. Shaw talked about ISRO having stellar women like Tessie Thomas, Ritu Karidar. And if you look at ISRO, actually about only 8% of ISRO scientific staff and technical staff actually are women. So women, there are many women in science, but mostly in the lower rungs. So why is that? So that is where we have to strike and try to solve, how can more women become leaders? Now, as many as 81% of women in STEM that was interviewed in one of the studies felt that there was a gender bias in performance evaluation. Now, one of the things that I think here is that there are not enough women in the performance evaluation. That is one of the reasons maybe why women don't get selected that much. So we really need to increase the entry of women in science. Now, this self-correction of number of women and more women entering into science and sustaining with it will take a long time. But we can surely facilitate that through some of the some of our programs and talking to women, and in academies, that what we do, we try to encourage women to come and take part in all our programs so that they're exposed to a variety of programs that prefer women doing those. So in a all India survey of higher education, you can see here that there are enough people enrolling in MSc. These are, the blue color is men and this white color is women. And then you see PhD enrollment in PhD in math. They didn't have the bioscience. I'm sure it would have been much larger. But in spite of that, it is not getting converted into career paths. So that is something that has to worry us. Now, in engineering colleges, if you look in India, the factor that is in the US, that is this chilly climate against the women, is not there. And the isolation, the sort of psychological intimidation, the loss of confidence that happens in US schools, it does not happen in India. I wouldn't say it does not happen, but it is very low in India. And there is indicative evidence that the women themselves feel the self-perception is not that strong. So that is where one has to come in and provide them with support to be self-sufficient and to have more self-confidence in another, spoken in another way. So also the selection criteria for top engineering colleges, namely with very high discrete cutoff on test scores, leaves the capable female engineers systematically disadvantaged in the admissions process. Now, the evidence and data available suggest, like they do not get access to good coaching. The self-esteem is low. So that is one of the reasons. And to open more opportunities for young aspiring females who wish to join technology courses of India, the IITs and other institutes should expand their selection criteria to include parameters besides the test scores. There should be interviews where many women may open up better, may perform better. And a larger test selection pool followed by interviews is another way to increase that. So, so that is how we can sort of increase the entry point in engineering colleges and also in science colleges. Now, if you look at this, this is a 5-year-old data that I have. If you look at this, that about 45, almost 46% of all enrolled undergraduate students in India are women. So that is very encouraging. But as you go later on, that they do not sustain it. Now you look at this, that in the engineering, this low blue one is the male, and a female is the top dark blue one. And you see that the males are more in engineering, and female population is more in medicine. It's interesting that they want to go into medicine. In management, it is less. In law, it is less. In IT, it is less. So we would have more women doctors, and that is very good news for us. But we would like to have more women engineers as well. And these are in technical streams. If you see, polytechnics have more men going in for the technical courses, and in nursing, more women. And nursing is something that has been traditionally associated with women. Teacher training also has been associated with women, so women can be teachers. And because of the family life, the job of a teacher is very good. So this is one figure also. Now, Dr. Shah was also talking about role models and leaders, that we have plenty. She said that we have plenty of role models. Yes, we do. In these days, we do have plenty of role models. And when I grew up, actually, there were role models like, if you can look at these books, you see there's a book by Jane Goodall, who was a very, very well-known primatologist. She worked with chimpanzees, something men could not do, because chimps and gorillas, like Gorillas in the Mist, written by Diane Fossey, is her work on gorillas. And they related very well with women. And so their families sort of adopted them, and they could just they could study their behaviors and all, and made seminal work on chimpanzee and gorillas by both Jane Goodall and Diane Fossey. Then there were stalwarts like Lisa Meitner, then Rosalind Franklin, Irene Julio Curie, Elizabeth Blackburn. So these are all such interesting books that one should read to know the role models of yesteryears. We have now many role models that that are coming up. They are modern, and they are really upbeat, good to know. But also the role models of yesteryears serve a great deal of inspiration. At least it did for me and for my friends. So so that's one thing that one perhaps should do. Now, why do we need inspirations? Because each one of us want to better ourselves and choose our pathway of life. Now, you want to grow, you want to learn as you grow. So biographies can give important lessons, and so does the stories about their work that I was just showing you. Biographies and autobiographies provide a valuable lesson in life. And also, they do not only give you a lesson about the struggles and challenges of the individual who is actually writing the autobiography or saying about their own biographies. It also gives you a contemporary history of that period, which is very interesting to know, because those days, if you are reading about someone who's in the 1800s, who's in the 1900s, you get a picture of those periods. And it is important to know these pictures, because then you can relate yourself that how we have progressed. So how much do we know about our women leaders, women science leaders that we had? Dr. Kiran actually mentioned about Janaki Ammal. So she is one of the women who was born in 1897. And she was born in Tellicherry, Madras, came from a very, very conservative family. But you can imagine 1897, when girls hardly went to school. And she went to England and started working as a cytogenicist there. And if you go to Battleston Hill in London, you see magnolia growing there. And that magnolia has a touch of Kerala in them, because it was planted by Janaki Ammal when she was there in the years of World War I. And she was a very brave woman. And she also went to US to do her studies. And I think she is one of the role models that I knew when I was young. I didn't know many, but I knew her. So she was a great inspiration that she could achieve what she has achieved. She co-authored with Darlington, the Chromosome Atlas of Cultivated Plants. And she also remains one of the few Asian women to be conferred an honorary doctorate just remember, in those days, by the University of Michigan. She came back to India at the request of Pandit Jawaharlal Nehru to organize the Botanical Survey of India and served as its Director General. In 1977, she was awarded the Padma Shri. But what is interesting about her, that when she died, she was working in the laboratory. So such commitment she had. So these are also, she worked on sugarcane that Dr. Shaw mentioned and made it sweeter. So you see, these are examples that you sort of tend to follow in your life. And she was a leader. Actually, she was a leader because she became the Director General. Even if you're not a Director General, we are all leaders in some way or other. We are leaders in our labs. We are leaders in our football game, cricket game, wherever we are playing. We are leaders. So So to be a good leader, one has to have some qualities, and that can also evolve. That can also evolve as your life progresses. So another person I wanted to mention is Annamani. Annamani was the first entrepreneur, women entrepreneur. She joined C.V. Raman's laboratory to do her PhD. And she published 5 papers, single authored, after she came out of the laboratory, I think, on the luminescence of diamonds and rubies. And she submitted her PhD in 1945, but unfortunately, she was never given a PhD degree she rightly deserved. And that PhD thesis still lies in the libraries of Raman Research Institute, indistinguishable from other theses, not saying that she was never awarded a degree. But she continued to work, and in the industrial suburbs of Bangalore, she headed a small company that manufactured instruments for measuring wind speed and solar energy. She was a good meteorologist, did some fundamental publications on meteorology. So Annamani is one example of very brave entrepreneur, women entrepreneur. We are seeing Dr. Kiran Majumdar-Shaw. She's such a great entrepreneur. So Annamani was one of the first entrepreneurs. Probably the first. She's also a great inspiration to many people. But how much do we know about these people? We do not. Very, very little knowledge. So we did. There are many other examples like Anandiben Joshi, Dr. Archana Sharma, Iravati Karve, Kadambini Ganguly was a doctor in West Bengal in her days in the late 1800s and early 1900s. So these are the people that that we thought should be brought out in a form of a book, and we did bring out a book. And these kind of books should be made and distributed amongst the public and the students to make them know that how women fared. Now, this is an interesting figure that I got, where it shows the women in leadership positions in different countries. Now, if you look at it, Australasia has the maximum, around 43% of female board members. Now, I should say what the study is about. There are societies, scientific societies. So Zoological Society is one such society. And this study was based on taking zoological societies from different countries and studying that how many are actually there in the leadership positions. But I'm sure that if you take other societies, this number is going to get diluted. But in this particular society, what you see is that around 43% in the Australasia, and North America it is 38 to 42%, and then Asia lagged behind and is about 18 to 22%. So there is a women participating in these in the leadership positions actually increases diversity, and that diversity is very important for any mission to succeed. So the more women come in, there are diverse views along with men. And not only women, diversity can happen that you come from a different part of the world, you mix together, and you are you have different viewpoints. You've grown up in a different culture, and so you have a different viewpoint, and so that makes the diversity makes it very robust. The whole idea that forms out of a group discussion in a diverse group is very, very robust and works better. And that is an established fact. So that is why we need more women, people from all around the world. And at the scientific leadership as well as the academic level, we need more women. And that is why I said that we need to facilitate entry of women in science streams. So there are two aspects here. That one, you need to facilitate entry. I say to parents that bring up your daughters like you bring up your sons. So they do not have this stereotype idea that I cannot go in maths and physics, I have to go in biology only. So you bring them up like your son. And then there is another part where once women get into science, give them enough opportunities to sustain it. And usually till about PhD, they sustain, but then the family duties, the biological clock is ticking, and then there is a gap. So we need to bring them back to science, and not only bring them back, give them opportunities, give them work atmosphere that helps them to maintain their family life as well as the working life. Now, one thing I wanted to say is we also need application of science for the welfare of rural women. I was in DBD. I was chairing the biotechnology task force for women, where I saw some remarkable women from the villages who are leaders in themselves. They would grow mushrooms, they would grow their crop, and they would, I mean, they have such a practical thought in their mind, because they have to do with very meager substance. So these women are leaders, and given opportunities, they would make wonderful things. So rural women is another issue that we tend to ignore because we are not perhaps comfortable talking to them. Now, I wanted to list some of the reasons that women force, why there is lack of women force in S&T. So there may be lack of confidence, and lack of encouragement from parents, and interactions. Mathematics teachers may not be that conducive to their thinking. So, and exposure to appropriate courses, exposure to hands-on laboratory experiences for women, and at later stages when when family duties could be helped by women-friendly policies at work, having a creche, giving them flexible hours. So these are important things for bringing up more women and women leaders as well. Now, I listed some attributes of a successful leader. And lo and behold, you look at that and see a mother in a family has all these attributes, if you look at them, or in general women. So remaining optimistic in difficult situations. A family will break if the mother is not optimistic in difficult situations. She should have calmness of mind, a leader. I'm saying that these are all common to both men and women, but look at these characters, the women have them much better than men. Calmness of mind, to be able to listen to people, not to be afraid of being wrong, positive approach, persistence, love and passion for work. Who has more love and men might say that this is not true. I mean, we have all this, it's true. But you see, we have these subtle differences in gender where perceptions are different. And I would say that women have all these attributes of leadership and ability to give credit to people, trust people, provide facilities, and the efficiency in managing their time. A woman can multitask like anything, have a flexible mind, celebrate paradoxical concepts, because people can bring all kinds of concepts to you that you should be able to listen, and ability to also articulate a vision for the future. Although we are not a matriarchal society, the mothers decide very much how the education of the children would go. I mean, of course, the father helps, but I'm saying that it is a joint effort between the mother and the father, and the mother has quite a bit of say in what the children are going to study. So there is an articulation of a vision for the future. So what can be done? So we have to look at how to raise number of women in science, how to train women in leadership positions. So we should have leadership mentoring for leadership positions, and how to bring girls from minority and socially disadvantaged classes to a career in science, how to design entrepreneurship and education for women, how to provide financial support to women, and can women be trained as leaders? So these are the things that we should be taking care of. Now, attracting young women, the career choices are influenced by society, as I have told before, that I think I'm running out of time. The family, friends, schools, teachers, they all should be supportive of women. And I'm sure teachers play a big role in a woman's career. And teachers should be encouraging the women to take up science. And the education of all involved is required. So what I mean by that is that all the people who, like the family, the friends, the schools, the teachers, they should also be educated to encourage the girl child. And institutions actually need to support equal opportunities between men and women and provide women-friendly work atmosphere. Inputs and insights from various quarters like leaders, social scientists, educators, and psychologists are also required to address these ever-changing circumstances. Look at what happened with COVID-19 coming. It has changed everything. So we need people like this to sort of say that how we are going to go about. And there should be mentor programs for these young women. Now, role models, I have already talked about this, so I'm not going to go into this anymore. Can you teach leadership is a big question. And as I said, it is not easy. You have to inspire people around you and live the leadership in the sense that from your own mind, you should think you're a good leader and you should try to be a good leader. And you'll be inspiring people around you. And you show qualities of leadership like trust and appreciation. You should trust and appreciate your colleagues. Have an open system to have people freely interact and not to do not make them afraid of not expressing their opinions, because you should be challenged and they should challenge you. And that is what actually gives a dynamic system leading to a very effective leadership and working colleagues. And you have to focus, of course, on sincere and earnest work. I do not think there is any gender in hard work and sincerity. And so we all can aspire to work hard and learn as we go along. And there are some thoughts. I thought we should generate a data bank on women scientists and engineers in India. This is something we do not have. As I said, we are quite weak in data and we should have this data. And then provide training at different levels for taking up science, technology, engineering, and medicine. And at 3 levels, undergraduates, graduates, and postgraduates. We should encourage girl students to take up engineering, science, I've told that before, and provide mentorship to the women students. Yes, I think seminars and meetings to enhance leadership. I have talked about all these before. So I think I will sort of stop here. And this Dr. Kiran already said what India government is doing for women. So I will not go into this. And like it started with our 6th 5-year plan, and then Department of Science, Technology and DBT came in, and 3 science academies have also done a lot of work for women in science. Okay, so this is a very cute picture that I saw of aspiring women scientists. And thank you very much.
Wow, thank you so much. There are so many comments in the chat box of YouTube, and people are really admiring the inspirational talk. Professor Chandrima, really thank you for such a wonderful talk. There are a few questions that I would like to take up. We also have today with us Vice Chair of OWSD, Bertha Garcia, and she's also admiring very much of the inspirational talk. She's from Peru. So thank you so much. Another question is from Monica Sharma, and she's asking, do we have training programs for women organized by DST, DBT, INSA, or ICMR in different stages of career?
See, it is not specified as women, there are women-friendly programs like BioCare, like, DST has some women-friendly programs, DBT has the BioCare. So there are women programs like this, but there are no separate
Professor
programs.
Chandrima, sorry to interrupt. Could you stop sharing this?
I am trying to do that. Just a minute. So is it still there?
Yeah, it's
Yes.
still there.
I'm pressing the button. It's not stop share. Okay, stop.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah.
Thank you. Sorry for the
I'm still not good at these. So yeah. So there are programs, but not actually for undergraduates and postgraduates.
Yeah, there is one more question from the audiences. How about the social safety of the women, especially with the leadership? This is asked by Dr. Sheila Malve.
Social safety, meaning I couldn't understand what social safety exactly means, but I mean, considering the amount of women we have now in leadership positions, and not only in science, you look around you, and there are women everywhere. I'm sure that that women do have a good social security in that sense.
Yes, there is one more question from Shilpa Shotriya, and she asked, ma'am, please give some tips or advice on how to balance a successful career while maintaining family life as well. That's the most common question we have seen in this entire series, and most difficult thing women find is balancing their professional life and personal life.
Yes, you see, if you have great examples in front of you who have balanced their their family life as well as the professional life. One of the things that you should do is to talk to your family so that they are responsive, that you have to be in the laboratory for some time, and you have to be, and you can be at home, you need some aid at home. So these also depend on the kind of atmosphere that you are in. And we can see great examples of women who have had family and did very well. And in fact, the family has helped them to grow. So one has to talk to the family to be conducive to their existence. Shalini, you are muted. You are muted.
Yes. Thank you so much, Professor Sa. There is one more question we have to address. You said that there is we should bring the diversity in the system, so that from the diverse background we should have women. But especially considering the India system, you see that this is missing. So we do not have people from diverse background due to whatever reason. What is your opinion?
Well, that is because I think, like I mentioned about your rural women or women coming from different strata of the society. So in a cosmopolitan situation, like in big cities, which are cosmopolitan areas, you can see women coming from different walks of life. But in smaller cities, you do not really see that, because I don't know, because of the social structure over there. So we need to work on it, because we need to engage people from different strata of society, of different income groups, and because each one of us have views, and can have views that you take examples of people who have come from a background which is not similar to another person who's in there, and this mixing actually gives views from different standpoints, and that is how you can work for society, because society comprises of a mixture of people from different walks of life. So if you don't have representation of them in your system, then you actually cannot do betterment of society.
Thank you so much. There is one more question from Shalaka, and she's asking, why women have to always undergo through a lot of hardship, hard work. You are telling us to do hard work, yes, but why always women have to do a lot of hard work to reach certain positions, and in spite of that also you see many men at the high positions, and women's due to their family life, or if especially the young women, if they have children, they are not given the leadership roles, thinking that they will not be able to contribute significantly. So how would you address this?
See, I didn't mean that men do not have to work hard. Men also have to work hard. It is difficult for women because the biological clock ticks and their responsibilities, there is a stereotype, and their responsibilities are looked at differently. So, there we need help with the family. And it's not true that it's always that men have got it easy. It's not like that. I mean, men also have to work hard. And so I didn't mean that work hard means you work yourself off. It's that you have to be very sincere to your work. And of course, I understand that if you have a family, you have a child, you have a family to look after, your mind is, digressed. But you have to find your way from within yourself. And this is very difficult to define or tell you how to do it. You have to find a way from yourself.
Yeah.
So
There is one more question from Monica Sharma. She's asking that what is the ratio of funded projects given to women in India? There is only DBT BioCare, that too for women having gap in their career. Do you think other agencies also should introduce many of such opportunities?
DST has programs for women, but I think Kiran is one program they have. So there are programs, that, but it is not sufficient. So there are only two major funding agencies like DBT and DST, and they have programs. But we can surely do with more. And I can tell you that the women's program in our country is much better than many other countries in the world. So, we are doing better over there, but surely it can be even, I mean, with some imaginative, thinking, that we can bring about, programs for women so that women can take part, like we have talked about bringing in women from different strata of the society, etc. We can do that. I mean, it has to be integrated. Our government has to wake up to this.
Wow, what an inspiring answer, and our audiences are complimenting. They are so happy. There are so many comments that this is a very, very inspiring session. They were looking forward, and they have really got what they wanted. There is one more question from Sheikh Firdaus. What are some of the most important characteristics that a female or a successful female researcher should have?
You see, for any researcher, the researcher has to be very focused. I'm telling you from my experience that I've been a researcher all throughout my life. Now that I've landed up with these programs is different, with this jobs is a different question. But I have been a researcher, out and out scientist all along. So I think for research, you need focus. It's one thing. And then you need to think very deep and, challenge yourself with ideas. And you grow up with science. And I think focus is the most important thing. Now, you can do a lot of hard work, but not get anywhere. That is because you need focus. So,
yeah, thank you. Yes, it's absolutely right that we need to be very focused. There is one more question from Gauri Paloskar. Can you please throw some light on the avenues available for funded research, especially for women in academia?
well, you can compete with all, there is no separate granting system for women. I think it will be beneath our dignity to even do that. Because you see, you should be able to compete with everyone. And grants are not given looking at the gender of the person. So I think one can compete in the systems that we have. We have SCRV, we have DST grants, we have DBT grants, we have DRDO grants. So we can, you can go to all these agencies to apply. And I wouldn't like it if there were separate grants for women, because we should be able to compete and do better. That is what actually drives you to become better and better.
Thank you so much, Professor Saha. There is one more question, and we have audiences from different countries, and there's one question even in the not only in India but in other countries also. We have disparity like gender bias, gender stereotype. So you are here as a president and first women president. How was your journey? How many hurdles or difficulties you faced to reach this leadership role? Please comment.
Well, I have been lucky. I have not faced any discrimination, but I will tell you what happens is it is not exactly discrimination, but people don't take notice of you. They don't sort of recognize that you are there. They don't sort of recognize your work. So that is a very subtle kind of thing that one feels. But I have not really gone through what is called discrimination, and I am fully aware that many women do go through these processes that happen, that they come along their way. But you know, for me, it has not happened. So if you ask me that why, how it was, I'm saying that it has happened like people are not taking notice of you. You're a woman, so you don't know, you don't know this, how, but I know all better. All this has happened, you know, along the way. But once you reach a certain point, these differences between the genders actually blur. So there you have a position, there you have a say, there you are different. So you have to sort of go through that process and survive that. And you know, I fortunately didn't have that much, but as I'm saying, that not ignoring you is one thing that did happen.
There is one more question. What one can do to make ourselves visible? As you are saying that one should be, you know, visible and others should notice. So what efforts as a women we should make that we are, you know, seen significantly?
Well, in the field of science, I can say that what you should do is to take part in more meetings, seminars, ask questions, interact with people, assert yourself, try to publish well. And, you know, that is the way. I'm talking about purely in an academic way, that how you should go about asserting yourself. You have to be good at these things. You have to publish well. You have to go to meetings, ask questions, meet with people, and give your opinion. And that is how you should grow up.
There is one more question. I think this will be the last question. There are many other questions. It is from Sushma Bisht. Would you please suggest some funded platform, as I have all the permissions for postdoc from NASA?
Funding platform?
Yes.
Funding platform meaning from here to go abroad. Usually that the parent lab funds you, and that's how you go. I mean, taking funding from India to go there are very few programs. I think there is only one. So I think you should ask for funding from your parent lab, and once they give you, you might find a sponsor for, you know, the airfare and all, but your stay and all should be funded by the parent laboratory.
Thank you so much, Professor Saha. We had really wonderful, inspiring session, and I'm sure we have international as well as national audiences. And I would like to tell them that tomorrow we have sessions from the speakers who is also INEAS member, who will speak about various national opportunities that women have in India. And also there is one speaker who will give all possible international opportunities, especially for women, they can grab. So please attend tomorrow's session, and I would like to give special thanks to Professor Saha for spending this evening with us. by sharing her own insightful journey. I'm really thankful to all the audiences for their active participation and engagement in this webinar and asking right questions and making this webinar very energetic and enthusiastic. So thank you so much, Professor Sa, and I'm looking forward
Thank you very much.
Collaborations in future.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Shalini, and thank you, Inyas, and thank you all the audiences. Thank you very much.
Thank you all.
So I would like to proceed, and officially I now request Professor Prakash Mahanwar, who is Dean HRD Institute of Chemical Technology, to sum up and give a vote of thanks.
Shalini, good evening to everyone. And I feel I'm really in the galaxy of stars. Whoever available on this platform today is a leader, stalwart in their own field. And I'm fortunate that I'm part of this particular platform. Today we have Professor Mm Sharma, Padma Vibhushan, Professor M. Sharma, Dr. Kiran Majumdar Shaw, Professor Chandrima Shah, Padma Bhushan, Professor J.B. Joshi, who is in the audience, Professor Lakshmi Kantham, who is the former director of IISc Hyderabad. Most of the women scientists who are best in their own field, in their own research area, they are attending, and not only from Maharashtra, not only from India, but worldwide people are participated in this particular program through YouTube as well as directly on website. And that's why I said I feel I'm really in a galaxy of stars. So I really thank for all these stars to spare their time. This 4 hours, I think we started around 4 o'clock, and by now it is almost by 3 hours. We are in the stars, we're with the stars of in particular field of areas, science and technology. As everybody has mentioned some of the difficulties, they explained their own example, what they came across about, but the situation is now changing. I think if you look at like 60s and 70s, the percentage of women leaders and the percentage of women leaders today, I think it has gone up with a good extent. And years to come, I think, as Madam said, there should be a participation or leadership up to 50%. Yes, it is going to reach, because if I see the example of ICT, there is to be very few lady students, minimum. I mean, you can count in on your fingers. So less number of lady students. But today, as Professor Sharma said, there are many lady students in the ICT, and maybe years to come, we will have more than 60% lady students in the ICT campus. So that's what give us little idea to organize these kind of programs. There was a letter from TICWIP to organize this function, and TICWIP coordinator Professor Padma Devarajan has taken lead. Shalini has great contacts worldwide due to INAS, so she has taken lead and she has organized. This is third series, and I hope Shalini again we can go for one more. I thank personally to all the stars who has contributed in terms of the speeches, as well as who has contributed for attending this program. And I request them to attend tomorrow also. Tomorrow also we have very good speakers. And I thank Shalini to you, because you have put in a lot of efforts. I thank Professor A.B. Pandit for allowing all of us to take up this challenge and organize these kind of functions. Initially, we started in Maharashtra or in India. Then we started for the regional language, and now we went global. I hope definitely we'll succeed in this. And with this, I request all of you to join us tomorrow again at the same time, and we'll enjoy your company. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Prakash Mahanwar, and I thank you once again, Institute of Chemical Technology, Indian National Young Academy, INIAS, Global Young Academy, for guiding me and providing the speakers, world-renowned experts. Tomorrow we have OWSD president, and there are many other international experts who will give their expertise in this particular area. So I request all of you to join tomorrow. I have shared this Zoom link. Either you can join on Zoom link or on YouTube. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shalini. Thank you, Prakash. Compliments to you for conducting it very well. Thank you, Padma, for guiding them. All the best for tomorrow.
Yeah,
I'll
thank
see
you, sir. Thank you very much.
Thank you.